And people have been going insane with this chapter. I mean, there's a lot really to work on in terms of both the general, the general just lore that we're getting right now and getting set up even further to get. I think that's obviously like a very big tie to this. But also, like, Noct is just like, he's going all in. This is yeah, you're either gonna succeed here and get it done or nothing. Like, he knows that Asta's he's a valuable asset. He's got a lot of potential in what he can bring to the table here. But he's at the same time, he's just like, well, if you don't, then really we don't really need you. He just sees it as an opportunity, and I think if that opportunity isn't met, he's not gonna feel that bad if something kind of happens to something that bad happens to Asta. And again, Noct's a very serious guy. He doesn't seem to be one to kind of take things lightly. He seems to be all in, all serious all the time, and I'm perfectly okay with that. But the chapter did begin. First off, we got to see the anti-magic devil's appearance. I like it. I think he looks spooky. I mean, I think that's what I needed most out of it, and especially with the devils, because I enjoy that they all have this kind of like they all have their own set to their design, but the general idea of them is something that is consistent with their species. I like that they have mostly these bodies of this dark devil energy, and then you have kind of like their collar, upper areas of their torso and their head, and their own energy kind of like line style moving into them, with also their own tail symbol. I think that's really cool, because again, the devils, they're not like they're not like, oh, they're just something like all mixed match and everything kind of just all over the place. They're a race, they're a species, and it's a completely different thing if it's supposed to be set like, oh yeah, this is like almost like a society of them instead. Like, they have their own structure, they have their own hierarchy. It's not like they're just kind of like all over the place and they don't kind of just do whatever for themselves. They clearly have some form of setup, of understanding of kind of like who's in charge. Like, we knew that from Zagrid when he talked to the anti-magic devil, and he talked about how like he needed to know his place like in the chain of command pretty much, and we know that Lucifero is like seemingly like the king of them. And I think it's just a really cool idea for the devils, because like I've seen, obviously, series where you have like demons and devils and monsters all look very different, but I think there's just always like a really cool feeling towards both sides of like, oh well, they're gonna be all over the place, you don't know what you're gonna expect. Whereas like something like this, where it's like, okay, you know that they're going to have a set kind of like style to their design, but what is their thing that's going to be different? And I think the horns being all different as well, on top of like the wings and the tails, is definitely like a really solid, simplistic way to go about it, while still being just in general really just really cool to see as each of them go. Because I do really love the different horn designs for each of the devils we've gotten. I think that just adds such a cool extra tone to their characters. But Asta opening up, being a pure boy, and he decides to thank the anti-magic devil. He's like thanking him because of all the help he's given him through this fights, and how he couldn't have got so far and become as powerful as he is now without his help. Like, I do genuinely really love that about like this chapter, because it was a sign that shows how grateful Asta is. Because one thing we have seen throughout the series is Asta is pretty humble. Asta appreciates what he's given. He came from nothing, so anytime he gets anything, it's just a very like core striking gift that he just to him, it just has such an extra level of appreciation. And I think that's one of the things about his character that isn't displayed like a ton, but it's done consistently enough that, it's something that's clearly a trait to him and not just like a one-off moment. Like we know, like when he first got his room, even in the Black Bull's base, even though it was like small and, all dusty and covered in like cobwebs and stuff, it was the first time he ever had his own room. And he really, really appreciated that. Like, I've always liked that about Asta, is he just seems to always have like a very wholesome reaction to just the kindness of others, even if it's as not intended as, again, something like getting a room, probably the worst room in the Black Bull's base, and getting aid from this devil. But while they're talking, like, you get some funny interactions, like he's like making fun of the fact that the anti-magic devil isn't actually tall, when he made fun of Asta's height when they first met. And I thought that was just a good chuckle, because there's not a lot of characters at Asta's height. Like, the only characters that are even remotely kind of close are like young people, or people like Charmy, who, I mean, Charmy's female for one, but also, you know, half dwarf, so it makes double sense of why she's as tall as she is, you know, being smaller than Asta. But like, I just really liked him having interacting with somebody that was as short as he is. But the anti-magic devil just, there's no way that Asta can beat him in a regular fight, at least here, because Asta, 1, has 1 arm. 2, he can't use his swords, because clearly the anti-magic devil's gonna have better control of them. Like, he not only took one of them, but he forcefully had the Asta's grimoire come out of his holster, open up, give him the Demon Slayer sword, and he's able to use it without even touching it. He's pretty much levitating it in the air, which I am very, very, very hoping that Asta takes note of that, because some people have compared like what's going on with like Naruto. Some people have compared it like in Bleach, when Ichigo like fought like in Inner Hollow and stuff, and like when he went and got his Bankai. There could be similarities, but the one thing that I will be forever fine with, even if people want to call it like a similar scene, is if Asta, after this battle, notes, oh, the anti-magic devil did something different with the swords that I hadn't done, and decides to learn how to do that, because he has shown throughout the series that he does pay attention to other people when they're doing whatever, you know, whatever their fighting powers and whatever's going on, that he can adjust and advance his fighting abilities from. We've seen that constantly, you know, obviously Mana Skin, Ki Sensing, you know, all these things he's able to combine. Like when he first got his black form too. First learned how to activate his black form on his own. Like he definitely is somebody who is able to actually take events and say, how can I use what just happened in order to make myself better? And that was one of the things that I always didn't like about Bleach, is that like the first time Ichigo really fights like the Hollow, like he fights his inner Hollow, like the white Ichigo has Zangetsu and like holds it by like the bandaging on it and spins it like a circular saw, and Ichigo even says like, I never even thought of doing that, but he never did anything afterwards to kind of like, oh, I should take that and use that. It's clearly very useful. It's a very good skill. Like he did it in one of the games. Like you can unlock Ichigo, or White Ichigo, the Hollow Ichigo, and that in one of the DS games, and he has that technique, and it was really good in the games. Like it's a really good ability. And it was weird to me that like Ichigo never said, oh, I should just start doing that, and maybe combine it with like his Getsuga Tensho, and he could have like almost like a circular saw spinning Getsuga Tensho machine gun firing attack. Again, that would be really cool, but he never did anything really with that beyond just noticing that. And I'm hoping Asta decides to end up doing like, oh, I should probably figure out how to do that, because it'd be useful, because then he could have all of his swords out at once, and then just have them levitate around him, grab one, and pretty much like he could literally just drop one mid swing, grab another, and keep going, and then either have it keep following him levitating or call it to him, because we already know he knows how to do that. But I'm like, they're kind of just going over this the ritual right now, and how like the bones and the skulls of all the people around in this room are people who failed, and not just like if you fail, you know, the devil will take over your body, and you know, you'll become like a grotesque monster, and they're just kind of brawling. But Asta's bringing up the fact that he is not trying to kill him. The anti-magic devil is not trying to kill him. Because I actually also really like that Nock mentioned how if you're going to get a power-up like this in such a short amount of time, it wasn't going to be like a decent method. It was going to be something very risky and very dangerous. I really like that, because you're taking something that is like, oh, you know, 2 days for a large power-up. Like, how, you know, oh, how do you balance that? How do you balance something that's going to be clearly like an OP jump for a character? Oh, it's not a method that you should probably do. It's like a high risk, high reward scenario. But obviously, Asta, like, he's smart when it comes to Asta's really smart when it comes to kind of figuring out people to a degree. Like, he's not like some hyper psychological genius, but he can get the gist about people by paying attention to them. For instance, like when he figured out about Charlotte potentially having feelings for Yami. Like Asta's pretty keen when it comes to that. And then that combined with key sensing, this devil's not actually trying to kill me. And you get like comments from Nock, who's just like, he's a devil, so he's not gonna have any kind of like principles or rules or morals. And the anti-magic devil's even trying to validate that. But Asta's like, he's different from the devil that he fought before, obviously referring to the Zagrid. And then Asta just brings up, it's like, just because you're a devil doesn't mean you're a bad person. And I like that a lot. Again, it's funny that people compare Asta to Naruto. I honestly see more moments from him with like someone like Natsu in a way, because like you have something like that, like, oh, just because it's similar to like how Natsu had against dragons. Like, just because you're a dragon doesn't mean you're a bad person, even though dragons have done so many bad things throughout history. Like, Natsu knew good dragons, and he knew dragons that helped him, and he knew ones that, you know, were shown to be good people. And just like how he's met good people, like good humans and bad humans, Asta seems to be going down the same pathway towards devils. He's like, why would a bad devil help me? Why would a bad devil do these things to help me get stronger and to help me do things that I was only able to accomplish because of him? And now that he's saying like he's not trying to kill me, he's different from this one that I've actually met that was bad. Combining like these observations, and I think, and just in the general of like, just because you are X doesn't mean you're a bad person, because it also goes into Asta's whole backstory of like being a peasant and being discriminated against. Asta isn't discriminating against the devil. He's not treating him like, oh, just because you're a devil, you're bad. And I think that is a really big throwback to his character and really good tying into his roots in general of what he went through and what he's experienced and how he's going about his kingdom or his journey to, you know, create a better kingdom where there isn't things like discrimination and everyone can get along peacefully. Because we knew that he had problems with the elves at one point, but he's like, if I just forsake the elves, then I would be not doing, like, I would be completely going against my dream of creating a place where people can exist peacefully. Because the thing about the elves is the conflict between the humans and the elves, it really depended on which side you saw things from. It was entirely a perspective-based situation. But then we knew, obviously, like, it was masterminded from Zagrid. But before that, it was like, it's not necessarily that they're bad. It was more complicated than that. It was way more complex of a situation. Like, the elves were wronged, but the humans, like, it didn't seem like everything added up. And because of what happened with the elves, they were just seeing all humans are bad, we need to get rid of humans. Asta, instead of just seeing, oh, you know, these elves have done these bad things, and having the same thing of like, just all elves are bad because they did these bad things. It's to him a case-by-case thing. Asta does not see things as like a large labeled group. He sees it as the individual, and he can put him in situations like, oh, just because, you know, you are a devil doesn't mean you are automatically evil. And that's one of the things I like about Asta, is just he is somebody who is able to call it like he sees it. He's not somebody who's just in general, oh yeah, you know, just because what people believe, I'll go with that. He's like, no, I'm making my own case for this. I'm taking what's going on, what I know, and my experiences, and letting those guide my decisions, and not what other people just tell them to do and tell them what the situation is. So the next chapter, I think I'm really hyped to see exactly like just background on this woman that we see. I'll go a little bit into my theory just because I know it's probably not a popular theory, because a lot of people don't want Asta to have some special background, but I think that the anti-magic devil is in some way Asta's dad or something. Because the whole idea, obviously, of Asta not having a special backstory is people want him to stay kind of non-special. But Asta could still do that while having something like an origin from something bigger, but it depends entirely how it's handled. Like, imagine, okay, because you have like the offspring of a human and a devil, that's what makes it so Asta doesn't have magic. He was like a species that shouldn't ever have existed. And it's maybe because of that, like, oh, his body was able to, or his body developed with no magic because of essentially just being a rarity. Something like, oh yeah, these two creatures should never have intertwined. And because of that, he was born in like this terrible situation because of what happened. And you could also lead that somehow into why the anti-magic devil has beef with Lucifero, because we saw during the scenes with Lucifero and Dante that Asta had a brief moment with, seemingly thinking back to who I think people are assuming, at least as of right now, safely assuming that this is Asta's mother. Could be a sister, could be anything, but I think the safest thing right now, I mean, I know she calls in the flashback, even in brief word, she does say that call him her son. So I think mother is the easiest one to go with. And maybe if Dante or Lucifero is some way related to that kind of thing, kind of that scenario of the death of said character, it would make sense of why they're both related to it. Like, imagine if it was Dante and Lucifero, like, both somehow being related to both Asta and the Anti-Magic Devil's personal backstory and struggles. Because it'd be cool, because it'd be something to unite them on. And I'd really like that, for one. And just on a side small note, like, Asta's hair is legitimately like a mixture of this woman and the Anti-Magic Devils. Like, there's definitely some big reveals coming up, and I definitely want to see where this goes. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, friend the like button, subscribe button, and check out my other videos. Oh, there is also early chapters this week, so chapters on Friday, so we'll probably get spoilers and stuff like early Wednesday or late Tuesday. So I mean, I really want to find out what's going on with this woman and the Anti-Magic Devil. Hopefully, again, I want a name for the Anti-Magic Devil before we get out of here. But anyway, other than that, though, comment below, thumbs up the video, from the like button, subscribe button, check out my other videos. But other than that, appreciate everybody's already subscribed, and thank you all for listening. Bye.